responding to the demise of folk psychology. Cartesianism has no problem with the hard problem. According to it, your phenomenal experience takes place in your private mind, which is located in res cogitans. And given that res cogitans is a mental and spiritual realm which exists outside of space and time, your phenomenal experience is not, and never will be, accessible to investigation by science. However, once Western culture began to question Cartesianism, the hard problem came into existence. Scientists and philosophers have responded to the hard problem in 5 basic ways. The first has been simple denial. Behaviorists, both psychological and philosophical, have simply denied that mental states and propositional attitudes exist, or in a milder version, have claimed that consciousness is an epiphenomenal delusion, meaning that we misinterpret mental states as causal and therefore overvalue the importance of these states. Secondly, particularly neuroscientists adopted a fundamentalist reductive position. Here, mental states, if they exist at all, are simply part of the physical world and based entirely on material, mechanical processes. From the point of view of fundamentalist reductionism, all talk about consciousness is epiphenomenalist. In other words, consciousness is an unimportant byproduct of the operation of the nervous system. Like the whistle from a steam train, it may be noticeable, but has no causal effects on the operations of the machine. A third response can be called normal science. The idea here is that consciousness does not really present an insoluble problem to the sort of science we have today. In this context, an analogy is often made with vitalism. Up to the end of the 19th century, it was still an open question as to whether the difference between living and non-living things could be reduced to differences in material structures and processes, or whether some vital essence or spirit was required. Our contemporary scientific establishment now regards this question as decisively settled against vitalism, and many within this establishment consider that consciousness will go down the same route. What they mean by this is that the scientific paradigms we have now, without drastically changing their assumptions, will be able to accommodate an effective and convincing physiochemical explanation of consciousness. The fourth response specifically contradicts this. A minority of leading scientists, for example Roger Penrose, believe that contemporary science will have to undergo dramatic paradigm shifts in order to explain consciousness. The shifts will be on a par with those experienced in 20th century physics in connection with relativity theory and quantum mechanics. Those who believe this generally also believe that the explanation for consciousness will eventually come from one of the new sciences, such as quantum mechanics, chaos theory, or nonlinear system dynamics. Finally, a fifth response to the decline of folk psychology has been Mysterianism. This comes in two versions. First, believers in the traditional faith groups who simply insist on the spiritual aspects of folk psychology and are not willing to consider any scientific evidence which contradicts these. Secondly, there's a philosophical version of Mysterianism, articulated especially by Colin McGinn, which claims that the human brain, as it has evolved, is simply not capable of comprehending whatever physical or biological structures and processes underlie consciousness. A comparison is sometimes made with a fly or a frog trying to understand the world of human culture. According to the Mysterian position, consciousness is and will always remain forever a mystery.